Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Natalie Louie Guisuraga about her ceremony at the Wedding Pavilion with a reception at Italy Isola in EPCOT. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how she chose these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Natalie.
Hi, Carrie.
Thanks for being on the show today. So I would love to start at the very beginning and find out how you and your fiancé decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
So I've been fortunate enough to grow up in a family where we would go to Disney every year. My mom is an annual pass holder and a DVC member, and I just kind of grew up going there, loving it, and spending all my time with my family there. And then when I started dating Noah, one of the first trips that I brought him on was a family vacation to Disney. And I think that at first it was a little bit overwhelming for him, but I think he ended up seeing how much it meant to me, and he started to appreciate it as well. And when it came time to think about where we would get married, I think I entertained a few other options in my area. I'm from New York, but just based on the pricing, I felt that it was very comparable to a Disney wedding. And, why not have my dream if it's for around the same price?
How did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
So I don't think any of my family or friends were surprised that I wanted a Disney wedding. I think a lot of my family members, when we got engaged, they were kind of joking with me and asking when's the Disney wedding, and they all kind of expected it. So overall, I had a pretty positive reaction, and most people were very down to travel. So that was great.
Oh, that's good. Okay. How many guests did you invite, and how many were able to make the trip?
I believe I invited just over 100. And we ended up with 76.
Did you set up a room block for your guests?
I did set up a room block. We stayed at the Grand Floridian, so I decided to block that one in case any guests wanted to meet near me, and also for some of the bridal party members. And we only chose one other resort, which was Pop Century. And I like Pop Century because I think it's a nice value resort, and it has access to the Skyliner. And I also didn't want to pick too many different resorts because just based on our timeline and transportation and all that, I didn't want the bus to have to make too many stops.
That's a really great point. And I think a lot of couples don't consider that if they are providing transportation for their weddings, that the more hotels your guests are staying at, then the longer all your guests will be on the transportation while it goes around to pick everybody up. Now, how did you guys choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
There weren't too many options actually, because my husband, then fiance, he was in law school, and his spring break was on a very specific week in March. And we decided that that would be a good time of the year for him where he wouldn't be too stressed. And also the weather I felt would be really appropriate. I definitely didn't want to choose a month where it was too hot. And I was also really concerned about rain. So I did a lot of research, and I found that March was kind of a less rainy month, pretty moderate temperatures, and yeah, it was really great. So I would say that we chose it because of my husband's schedule and as well as the time of year. I found it to be really nice.
Got it. And then was time of day just dictated by the fact that you wanted to have fireworks during your reception at EPCOT?
Yes, but I actually, just to have daylight photos in EPCOT, I actually started the reception portion early, and I added on 2 hours to the entire event at the front end.
Oh, that's great. Okay, great. Now, how did you choose your ceremony and reception venues?
So I went on an open house to the Wedding Pavilion, and based on pictures and the vibe that I wanted for my wedding, I found it to be even more magical in person when I went to see it. And I think I really wanted my wedding to have a very classic, romantic, and timeless feel.
And how did you choose Italy Isola and EPCOT for your reception?
I think that Italy is just the quintessential princess Disney venue, and I really like the colors in the Italy Isola where it's pink and there's whites, and I just find the space to be so open and so magical, and just to be immersed in the park in that area, it's just unlike any other location. And I think that Italy has the best viewing for the fireworks. It's kind of centrally located, and yeah, it's just a great venue.
A lot of times people are worried about having their entire reception outdoors at EPCOT or any other park because you can't have amplified entertainment or characters while the park is open. How did that work for you guys?
I was pretty concerned at first that the party extended into the evening after hours would be a little bit late for our guests. And also, since amplified music can't be played before the park is clear, I was a bit concerned about the timeline and that we wouldn't have enough time for dancing. But I think Disney did a great job at coordinating it so that there was plenty of time. It didn't feel rushed. And I think my guests, even though some of the kids fell asleep, they woke up for the surprise at the end, and people thought that it was worth it. And it was a very unique Disney experience.
Did you guys use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
Yes, we did. We had outside photography and videography, as well as hair and makeup. So for photography, we had Casey Marie Photography, and she was amazing. And I believe she frequently works with this videographer that we also had at our wedding. They are Lupinek Productions. And for hair and makeup, we had Stacey Otto, and she was as amazing as they say on the Facebook page and more. She was just wonderful.
That's awesome. How did you choose your officiant?
So my officiant was actually my husband's uncle, and we chose him because we feel like he's somebody who's very invested in us and our relationship. And we've also seen him speak at other family public type events, and we found him to be a great public speaker and to have a really warm and engaging presence. So that was an easy decision for us, and we're really happy that we chose him.
Fantastic. Did you add any kind of entertainment to the ceremony or the reception?
Yes. So we decided to add Mickey and Minnie, and we also had a DJ at the reception portion. And of course, while we were at the reception in Italy, we saw the fireworks, and we also added a surprise ride mix in.
Oh, that's cool. What ride did you pick?
We chose Frozen.
Did you pick specific outfits for the characters?
Yes, so funny story about that. We chose the rose gold outfits, but we ended up having to change those.
Oh, interesting. What did you change them to?
So because we ended up adding Donald and Daisy in the end, there are only certain outfits that the four of them can be in together. So I believe it has to be kind of somewhat of a matching set, and that the parks have to approve it. So that was a bit of a process too.
So what outfit did you settle on that all four of them could wear?
So I believe that Donald, Mickey, and Minnie, they were all in kind of formal classic outfits. And like the black and white ensemble, Minnie was wearing white. And I believe that Mickey and Donald both had a top hat. And the Daisy, it was a classic Daisy outfit. It was like a pink top and her usual little bow. So that was approved.
Ah, cute.
Yeah, it was really cute.
Do you have any menu items or cake flavors that you would recommend?
Cocktail hour food, or I guess the pre-reception food, I think that really stood out among our guests. We had crab cakes, we had bacon wrapped scallops, and we also had these Korean beef crostinis, which people love.
Now, I know a lot of times couples who are from the New York area worry that they won't have enough appetizers at a Disney event because they're used to going to events in New York where there are tons and tons of appetizers. How did that work for you guys?
I didn't stress too much about that. I think I was just concerned overall about the amount of food, but I think that it was plenty. And since we were in Italy, we had to do the buffet, and that's the option that I would have chosen anyway, because I think, so much variety, just a very fun setting, and yeah, plenty of food. Yeah, and Disney did a great job with allergies as well. I think that even our guests that had allergies or food restrictions, they had plenty to eat.
That's wonderful. Did you add any other events around your day, like a dessert party or a welcome party?
So we did end up adding a welcome party the night before, and it was at the Grand Floridian Marina at the Grand Floridian.
That's great. Was it during fireworks?
Yes, it was during fireworks. And that night it was actually really, really cold and windy, which is, I think, not common during that time of year. And I believe that we found out afterwards that it was a cold front and that's why it was so cold, but we still had fun.
That's great. Do you have any menu items from that party you would recommend?
At our welcome party, we actually did a poutine bar, but it was kind of like different styled poutine. So it was the sweet potato fries and regular fries, and we had regular poutine toppings as well as like a Tex-Mex inspired poutine, and then like a bacons and barbecue kind of barbecue-y inspired poutine. And we also did a Mickey waffle bar, and I thought that was a great option because we added chicken, so it was a chicken and waffles for a savory option. And then we also added ice cream, syrup, and strawberry puree for like a dessert option. And I think the bar gave us so much variety, and I think there was enough to eat for everybody.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Can you give my listeners a timeline of how the wedding day all fit together?
So I woke up at 7:30, and I believe that hair and makeup arrived at 8 o'clock. And we did hair and makeup until around 2. And that's when our photographer and videographer showed up. And since my groom and I decided not to do a first look, we had two photographers so that one could follow the bride and one could follow the groom. So from around 2 to 4:30-ish, we kind of did photos separately. And I really wanted to prioritize getting photos with our immediate family and bridal party and all the groomsmen and all that, just because I wanted to focus on our portraits later on in the day since we wouldn't be able to see each other until the ceremony. So we finished all our photos with our friends, immediate family at around 4:30-ish. And I'm not sure if I started walking at 4:30 or 4:45, but I don't believe we were rushed or anything. So I think it was a pretty leisurely timeline. We started the ceremony at 5, or I think that's what people tell me. I wasn't looking at my clock. And then we did a few couple portraits and immediate family portraits outside at Picture Point. I think at around 5:20, 5:30. Right after that, we did a staged exit in the front of the wedding pavilion, and I believe that was at 6 o'clock, 6:05. And our guests were all on the bus by 6:10, which is exactly what I planned for to arrive at EPCOT. Our reception was from 6:30 to 1:30, and I really wanted to emphasize getting daylight photos and time in the Italy Isola area when it was kind of that golden hour period. So 6:30 was a perfect time to get there, and we did our cocktail hour from 6:30 to 7:30. And while the guests were enjoying our food, we kind of mostly our couple portraits, and Disney set aside some food for us so that we could enjoy it with our dinner. And we had our dinner buffet from 7:30 to 9. And from 7:30 to 8, we did cake cutting. And I kind of wanted to do that, I guess, at the start of dinner. And I didn't want to make a big spectacle out of it because I feel like sometimes guests aren't too interested in watching the couple cut the cake and eat it and all that. So the cake was out for people to view. A lot of people went and took pictures with it on their own. And when it came time for Noah and I to go and take pictures of the cake, it was perfect in daylight like I wanted. And after that, we sat down and ate. I believe we finished eating a little bit before fireworks started at 9. And I think we were mingling probably for 20 minutes or so before fireworks. Fireworks were from 9 to 9:20-ish. And then we surprised our guests with a frozen ride mix-in. And I believe that happened from 9:30 to 10:30. After that, we came back into the Italy Isola. I changed into a traditional Chinese dress for pictures with various guests. So even though I had the cake displayed earlier for pictures and for people to look at, I didn't serve dessert until 10:30 when we came back into the space after the ride mix-in, and I think that people were ready to eat a little bit more by then because I think they were so stuffed from dinner. And we also had a coffee and tea station for our guests. I'm not that crazy about coffee, but my husband and my mom insisted that people would need coffee with dessert. So we added that on. And after we had dessert and took a few photos in my traditional Chinese dress, I changed back into my gown. And then we did speeches at around 11 o'clock. Right after speeches, we started our first dances and the dance floor opened, I believe. It was at 11:15, 11:30 when that started. We had open dancing after we did our first dances, and then we had our surprise, which was Mickey and Minnie from 12 o'clock to 12:30. And then for the rest of the night, we had open dancing, and then finally, right before the night ended, we had a last dance.
Did you find that because your reception was 7 hours long and it went so late, did anybody leave early from your event?
So I believe that some people expressed to me that they might have wanted to leave early, but I think that once they found out that they were waiting for the surprise, which was Mickey and Minnie, that they ended up staying just to see what it was. And I think that that was a great way to kind of get people to stay and to kind of get them excited about spending the entire evening there, even though it was really late.
That's a great idea. So out of all of this, what ended up being your favorite memory of your day?
My favorite memory, I guess, would be a few things. So my favorite memory with my husband was when we were taking pictures at Picture Point and all of our immediate family and bridal party left us and it was just us two alone. We were taking our portraits and our photographer, I guess she kind of surprised me and she said, take a few minutes, just the two of you. And we're not even going to take pictures just for like 5 minutes and you guys can just do your thing and we're going to go back into the wedding pavilion. And we had those few moments to kind of see each other without the crowd and to talk and to kind of just share our reactions about the ceremony. And it was just super special. And I feel like that's something that I remember. Another favorite thing of mine that actually stems from something that wasn't so great was that we ended up adding Donald and Daisy on top of Mickey and Minnie, which was not planned until the day of. So Mickey and Minnie, we always wanted to have them, but Donald and Daisy, they were an add-on. And the reason why we added those on was because a communication issue between us and Disney. So there was construction happening, very visible construction happening in Italy on one of the buildings. And we weren't informed of it ever. And a couple days before the wedding, my bridal party and I, and also some family members, we decided to do a EPCOT drink around the world kind of celebration to get ourselves excited for the event. And it was at this Disney day that my husband noticed that there was construction. We saw it from across the water and I was super, super upset. It was something that I thought was going to ruin the wedding, just kind of the construction, ruining like the aesthetic. And I feel like we put so much effort into planning to have even one aspect of it, which is a pretty big thing, to not be as you plan. It was really tough. So I was upset about it. They were really apologetic, and I understand because I feel like communication is tough in such a big company. And they were super apologetic, and they offered to add Donald and Daisy for us. And I was super, super happy to have them because they're my favorite. I think I wanted them even more than I wanted Mickey and Minnie, but I think Mickey and Minnie, I guess they're the more popular couple. So having all four of them there was one of my favorite memories. And even my dad, he thought it was so special to have so many characters all together interacting with us and taking pictures because I feel like that's rarely the case. If you go into the park, which we do all the time, you only get like one character. You rarely even get two of them together. So I thought that was so special, and a bad thing turned into one of my favorite memories.
That's wonderful. When you guys were planning, what were some of the most important aspects of the event where you focused your attention or your budget?
The venues, I think I focused a lot of my time and attention on, as well as food and guest experience. I wanted to have add-ons that would be fun for the guests and make it a very memorable, a very unique, and very classic Disney experience.
Were there any aspects that were less important where you saved your money or just your effort?
So I would say that I saved money on my centerpieces because I didn't really have centerpieces in terms of floral, and I only had table numbers. So kind of saved on decor by doing that. And for the table numbers, I was a bit concerned that without, I guess, like other signage, that the guests would be a bit confused. But on each table, I kind of DIY'd it. I had a picture frame sign with the name of the table. I had it, they were all Disney princesses, and I just had every single person's name who was assigned to that table, not assigned seating, just the assigned table listed on that one card in a picture frame. And our guests, I think they had fun kind of walking around, looking at the tables and just kind of finding their table assignment. And I think that it wasn't as complicated as I thought, and it saved me money on signage both ways. And since I didn't have any centerpieces, I kind of splurged more on my sweetheart table, and I think that that was a very impactful floral piece. So I kind of just had floral around my sweetheart table and no centerpieces because I figure guests don't care as much about floral and all that as I do. So I think that was the right decision to make, and nobody noticed that there wasn't much decor on their tables, but I think it turned out looking great, and I think the space and the atmosphere of being in the park more than made up for the lack of whatever decor that I could have had.
Got it. Okay. Did anything go wrong or not turn out like you expected? You mentioned the thing with the construction.
So this wasn't really a negative thing, but something that turned out differently than I thought was after the ceremony was over and I went to take pictures at Picture Point with my family and wedding party, my guest, I believe that my planner scheduled them to stand outside to get ready for the pedal toss exit. But the coordinator on the day of, she kind of had everybody stay in the wedding pavilion so that they were separate from me where I was taking pictures outside. And my guests actually really enjoyed taking pictures. And I thought that that amount of time while we were taking pictures, I thought that they would be upset about it or that they would be bored and have nowhere to go. Or, I was worried about what if people wandered around and they'd miss our bus. But it ended up, they just had fun taking pictures in the wedding pavilion. So I would recommend that option. And I would recommend it even if your wedding planner doesn't bring it up, because I think that it's a great option and it worked out really well for me.
Got it. Was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about and then it turned out not to be?
So I think the construction, like I mentioned, it was something that wasn't, it was bad, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. And I think on your wedding day, there's just this electric feeling and this feeling of that nothing can go wrong. So I think that it actually didn't end up being as big of a deal as I thought. I didn't really notice it at all. And I was also really concerned about the weather. Even though I picked a good month, I was scared that there would be some, I guess, like weird rain that would be happening, but it was great. And I think even if it had rained, I think it would have been a great time as well. So didn't really need to stress about that.
Is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
I think the one thing that I would do is kind of not stress as much, because the whole time during the planning process, I was reminding myself that, I know Disney, I know that they do a great job. And I've read, all the Facebook Disney brides say that on the day of it's great and Disney does deliver. And I really believe that they do. So I feel like if I could go back, I wouldn't have stressed as much and I probably would have had a better planning experience.
Okay. Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
So one thing that I would recommend is breaking up the times that your open bar is open. So because I had it closed at certain periods of time, I found that it saved money. And also I was strategic about it. So for example, when Mickey and Minnie were out, I had the bar closed. Or when we were watching fireworks, I had it closed. Or when we were going on our ride mix-in, it was also closed during that period of time. So it worked out well in terms of saving money, and the guests didn't really notice when it was closed just because I was strategic about it. And when it was open, they knew to get more drinks. So some people, they got like 2 at a time just so they would have one during the period that it wasn't open if they were able to. So I think that's a great money-saving tip.
That's great advice. Well, Natalie, I think you've offered a ton of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Your guide was really so helpful to me. I enjoyed reading it, and I really enjoyed, all the tips that you had. And it's a dream of mine to be on your podcast. I listened to so many episodes. So thank you so much for all your help, too.
That's awesome. That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.